Hey everyone, welcome to another webinar of OpenLM. I'm Sigi, I will be your host today. We will go over a simple but complicated subject, engineering licenses. We'll basically go over all the types that we have. We'll see the progression, how it progressed along the history. We'll see all the different types we have found in the market. And we'll also have a discussion at the end about current events with licenses, new modules popping up, and so on. Okay, so software licenses. What is it? As you all know, basically, your users need licenses. They need to be able to use an application. So you got many different types. How it flowed along the history of licenses. Basically, at first, there were single licenses, either named or node locked, meaning one user, one license. That's basically it. You got poor utilization because it's just one guy with the license. Then they came up with floating licenses. Floating license model pretty much answers the problem of single-use licenses, where, okay, I got a license for someone, but he's only using it like one day of the week. He's only using it like 1 hour out of the day. Or maybe he's using it for the full 9 hours. But I don't want to pay so much. So what vendors have done is create the floating license model, which we all know and love. Basically, you've got license servers. Users get shared licenses from that server, and they can use it. If you're doing the best job you can, all the licenses will be used maximally all of the time, and you won't get anyone denied. But then came token licenses. That's an evolution of floating licenses. Basically, the floating licenses allow you to share licenses, but then you had the problem of basically migrating different licenses. What does that mean? Let's say that you bought a certain feature. So you need to buy a whole bunch of features, and you need to know what each guy needs. Now, let's say some user needs some kind of application that you're not licensed for, so you need to buy a floating license for that as well. That means that you'll have to go through all the catalogs, see which products you need to buy that. It's kind of a mess. So the token licenses, what they said was, okay, let's streamline it. Let's say you just get a bunch of tokens, like Carnival tokens. You pay up and you can play, but you get the token back. It's a shared token, just like floating licenses. So where's the difference? Basically, each feature, each license has a different token rate. But you don't pull a single license, you don't pull a single feature, you just pull the whole catalog. So you can get any license you need. The user can get any license he needs from the whole catalog. That you don't need to purchase a certain license. You just know how many were used and which features were used within the catalog by the usage, by the shared usage. Now, the new progression that we had, Tokenflex licenses. Now, this is an Autodesk model, and we hope it's not going to spill over to other vendors. But this is another model that we are seeing now. That means that basically the token that you used before and you got back from the machine, now you don't get it back. You just pay up. It's like money. It's like coins. So Tokenflex works a bit differently. It has the same functionality of the tokens, but it adds a layer of complexity to it. But let's go over each one. So single-use licenses, that's pretty basic. You got a username and a password, or just a host name and a MAC address. The license latches on to that software and to that user or PC, and that's it. Now, what can OpenLM do here? Because you can't really monitor that. You have those licenses on the license, on the license user application PCs. You got it on the workstations. So what you can do, you can spread out the OpenLM agent and use the unmanaged processes extension to monitor those licenses. That means even those licenses without a license manager, you can still follow the usage if they're actually used or not. Meaning if someone is not using his license, maybe you can revoke it. So what are the pros and cons? I'm just going to give you a general sense of it. Basically, you got a small amount of users. I don't know, I got 10 users, I got 5 users. I'll just buy one for each. I know them by name. They need a license. They need to work. I'll just buy for them. It has very low potential for utilization because it's a 1-to-1 ratio. One guy and one license. That's it. You can't really monitor it unless you use OpenLM. It requires constant reassignment, of course. Let's say someone left the company, someone joined, you need to assign licenses, and not all vendors have an automated way to do that. And something that we've seen that some licenses are purchased but actually get lost. You got a lot of licenses, those single-use licenses get lost along the way. So what's good about them? Well, all the users can always work. They'll never get denied. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, yeah, but they'll never get denied. They'll always have the license that they need. You don't have to maintain any license server. You don't need anything. And it's good for end users. If you got like, let's say an office and everybody's working at the same time, starting up 7 a.m. until 3 or 4, then a floating license won't really help you here because everybody is using at the same time. So just buy this type single-use licenses, it might be cheaper. Okay, now please note that GoToWebinar has a questions box. If you have a question or a comment or anything, you can just post it there. Once I'm done with my thought, I'll just look over there and answer if I have it. So what does OpenLM provide you with? Usage reports. You can see reports, the same reports that you've seen for the floating licenses, also for named and node lock licenses, because the usage streams in from the OpenLM agent sitting on the workstation. So now we get to the present day. Floating licenses, something that most users use. This is why you search for OpenLM. You want to get control over your floating license because you don't get a whole lot. So what is it basically? There are two types here. You got the on-premise or cloud license manager. Both types OpenLM can support. Now, what this does, basically you got an amount of licenses and it is sent to the workstation itself. Pretty simple. So what can OpenLM do for you? As you probably already know, monitor the license managers. So all licenses which are being spread out to the workstations and how they are used and when are you depleted of licenses and all that is monitored by OpenLM. So OpenLM supports 4 different cloud-based license managers, namely Adobe, ArcGIS, Office 365, and I forgot the third one. And we have, I counted yesterday, 40 different license managers that we support, which are on-prem. So you probably already know the pros and cons of floating licenses. You probably are dealing with those heavily. You probably know that migrating those licenses are not simple. You need to buy a specific license. You need to know all the products that you need in advance. The licenses are purchased per product. You don't buy, sometimes you buy it for a package, but you don't buy it for a full catalog of licenses per product. And of course, as you know, users can get denied. Now, this is shared between users. That means you can maximize it if you use it across different time zones. So let's take the example we had before where you got an office and everybody is working at the same time. Now, let's say you got another office, one in China and one in US. Both of them are working full hours, but now it doesn't make sense to get named licenses. You can just have a floating license server. Just spread licenses across globally to all of them. Now, this depends on the vendor itself. If they allow for a local or a global license manager, it really depends. But basically, it allows you to maximize the usage across many different departments, across many different states, many different time zones, whatever you choose. Now, of course, that the license usage is monitored by the license manager, which is monitored by OpenLM. OpenLM gives you a full solution for that. We have the core OpenLM webinar, which you can register to that, or just go to YouTube, type in OpenLM core. You'll find what OpenLM does for floating licenses. And lastly, the utilization. You got high utilization because some people can use during the day, some people will use during the night. You can have all your licenses utilized all the time. So you got a very high potential for utilizing those licenses. Now the reports are the same user reports that you can see for floating named tokens are in OpenLM. Now, let's talk about token licenses. There are a few types. You got IBM, for example, that has some products with tokens, some floating. You got Autodesk that might give you tokens, and you got many different vendors trying out many different things, but all of them follow the same basic path and same basic rules when talking about tokens. Tokens mean that you don't need to buy a license. You simply buy a full catalog of licenses. You don't have to choose. You buy, let's say, 1,000 tokens, which is like 1,000 licenses, for a certain bundle, let's say, of different licenses. You don't just buy AutoCAD, Inventor, and I don't know, just have everything. So you don't know what the client or what your end user will use. You just take the tokens. What do you do with the tokens? You point them to the same license manager, and you get a license from the pool. But you, as an admin, you don't have to define that. They just get one from the catalog. Now, each feature has a different token rate. For example, Inventor might be 10, AutoCAD might be 20, and it depends on the amount of tokens that you have. Now, we've seen 2 types, shared tokens and consumable tokens. Shared tokens, basically, it's like a floating license. You got licenses we got tokens which will be brought back into the pool after use. So I open up Inventor, I get, I don't know, 20 tokens. I work on it, and when I'm done, the tokens go back into the token pool. And there's always a pool on the license manager. Now there's consumable tokens, which, for example, Tokenflex has consumable tokens, meaning that once you give out those tokens, they're gone, they're out, you're finished. Once you're done with the amount of tokens that you have, then you just need to buy a whole lot more tokens. People start getting denied. You don't have tokens anymore. So OpenLM also can monitor that. It can monitor both shared and consumable tokens. It can tell you if you're utilizing it well or not. You get the same usage reports as before, but token-based. So what are the benefits? What are the pros and cons? Well, as we said, easy to migrate tokens. You can move tokens from one catalog to another. You don't have to do it per product. Tokens can be shared between different products. That means you share it between different users and you get the high potential, the high utilization potential, as we've seen with floating licenses. Basically, this looks like floating licenses enhanced because it's easier, but there are a few drawbacks. If it's consumable, of course, it's spent after usage. It's hard to estimate the amount of tokens required because it's not a one-to-one ratio like it was before. I got 10 licenses and I got about 10 users, so it should work out. Now it's tough. It's okay. This has 10 tokens, this has 20 tokens, this has 30, this has 50, this has 10. Whoa. So what do I need to get? So you can't really. It's really hard. They give you a simple estimation of how many you have, like amount of users times 3 or something like that. Some people say times 2, some people say vendors say times 3, and they give you this amount. But it's not right. It's not the correct amount. It usually fails. So it's hard to estimate. And usually tokens are lost in the end of the year. It's not a permanent license. It's not a perpetual license like a floating license. Usually it's year-based, but it can also be floating. Sorry, perpetual. So users can get denied here. Just like with floating licenses, they can also get denied, meaning no tokens left, you don't get the license. Now this is the last iteration that we've seen in the licensing world before it starts doubling back on itself. I'm going to explain. Tokenflex licenses, that means that it's a consumable network token, but with a few tweaks. For example, you consume the tokens, but it's a daily consumption rate. That means when 12 a.m. rolls around server time, you'll have users getting more tokens for the same session. Now, OpenLM, of course, can help you with that, but let's dive into the Tokenflex and its pros and cons. So if you got a floating license or a token license, you got a single session and it simply goes on. Day 1, day 2, it's a single license that you've used. But Tokenflex, you got it 1 day. After 1 day, and this is server time, this is time on the license server itself, 12 a.m., boom, all the licenses are thrown in the garbage and all the users are forced to get new licenses and continue on with those. New tokens, sorry, and continue on with those. Now, let's say you got the server in USA and you got in China your engineers. So right around the middle of their workday, they're going to have their tokens thrown away and they're going to get new tokens, meaning that they spent double the amount of tokens that they need for that single session. If it was a floating or a token, it would just be the same amount. Also, it has product family aggregation. Now, family is like a package. You can't really get a feature, you get a family of features, which is like getting from a catalog. Now, what are the pros and cons here? Well, first of all, users will rarely get denied because you'll get an insane amount of licenses of the tokens, let's say 3 million tokens, and you'll have them for the whole year. Go. It's unlimited. They don't get denied actually, but they are lost at the end of the year. They are yearly. You do get it with product families, which is kind of confusing and is a bit harder to monitor, but easier to maintain. And of course, your tokens are spent after you're done. You used it, that's it. So either you need the right amount, or if you have unlimited, then it matters less, but you'll have much more usage due to this issue. Now, tokens can be shared between products. As we've seen, license usage is monitored and managed by a license manager. But how does OpenLM come in here? OpenLM allows you, first of all, to see the usage of those token licenses per family of products, and you can see the consumption times, the amount of tokens that were consumed, and so on. And OpenLM can also help you with the double token consumption issue. Now let's go back to this slide. Let's say right here that right around midnight, OpenLM will check who is idling and will just kick them off, meaning it's about 12, about to be 12. Well, check who's idling. Oh, I see Bob idling for like 2 hours now. Emma is idling for like 1 hour now. So you can close their session, save their work and close their session. Meaning that it won't spill over to the next day. And you could get reported on that. You could see when it happened, when the change happened, how many tokens were reduced, how many were taken, and so on. So how does it do that? Using something called the OpenLM agent. It's installed on the end user workstations. And if you have the actual usage extension, then the OpenLM agent can know if currently you're using the application or not. Meaning that if it finds that the CPU, memory, and I/O operations per second for that applications go over a certain threshold, then it's currently being used. Either the user is using it or some simulation is using it, it's being used. But if it drops below that, then OpenLM knows that currently it's idling and it's counting that. OpenLM it's counting how long is it idling for. And what you can do after is use the extension active agent to simply save and close the application. Meaning that OpenLM server will tell the agent to talk to a little API that we developed and just tell Autodesk to, hey, can you simply please save and close the application? And Autodesk simply does that. The user can then restart with the same project just by clicking a button. Now, here you can see the released idle licenses. If a user was idling next to midnight server time, so he got his license removed, and the idle license was removed and the application was closed. As you see here, we have Natalia, her QA, happened to her a few times with AutoCAD. And That's basically it. Now, I want to talk about uh, what's going on right now with licenses and also current events. So we are seeing a shift. If we've seen up until now the move from single-use licenses to floating to tokens, now it's starting to double back, and some vendors are starting to offer single-use licenses only now. So they went back to the start. Probably they'll have a new form of floating license and tokens ahead of us. But we're seeing that movement. Now we have on our YouTube page, if we just go to YouTube and go to and search for OpenLM, we have our CEO discussing this exactly. Him and his whiteboard going over all the major topics going around now with licenses. So for example, Autodesk said, okay, I'm going to give you, for every user you have, I'm going to give you 2 named licenses, and we're going to strip away your floating license. So for example, he goes over this exact scenario and how it's not beneficial for you, and how we found in our sources that it's simply not beneficial in many cases. And the Tokenflex that you've seen currently, we've seen that with Autodesk. We hope that we don't see that somewhere else. Mainly, Autodesk tried to sell this on very large installations for people who have many licenses, and they don't want any users to get denied, so they have that options for them. But it comes with a cost. Now, fortunately, most other vendors, they remain with floating licenses. As you know, the good old floating licenses, no tricks there. But now we are facing kind of a crisis, world crisis, and there are problems with licenses. We know that, and we are trying to accommodate to that. Know that during these hard times, we have full support for you. We still work 6 days a week, 24 hours a day. We work from home, but we still support you fully. So don't be shy. You can call up the OpenLM support team. We're there, no problem, even within this time. And what we've seen discussed up until now is borrowing issues. Many people are working from home, getting licenses, borrowing them, and then you got no more licenses left. So also stuff that OpenLM can help you with. Know if currently licenses are borrowed or not, who's using Citrix, what they're using, and so on. But I believe that if you turn to our CEO's channel here, you will be able to get much more information on the subject and also current event, how it can link to the current epidemic. In any case, now is your turn. Please let me know if you have any questions, share any new license types that you've seen, any modules that you'd like me to go over, whatever you want. Just go ahead, type in the questions box. You've got in GoToWebinar, you've got a questions box. Just ask whatever you need. But if not, if this is enough for you, then I would thank you very much. And if you later on have a question, you remember that you need to ask something, or maybe you have an issue, you can just go to the OpenLM website, click on About Us, Contact Us, and you can contact support, contact sales by email, or just call us up over the phone. Or the best option, if you click here, you get support chat. and this rings for all the support engineers. So this is guaranteed to be the fastest way to get in touch with one of us. Okay, I have a question from Leandro. Did you already make a study about the new named licenses from Autodesk? Yes. So again, if you go to this to Oren's vlog, to the OpenLM channel, you'll be able to find them right here. Study for migrating to Autodesk to named licenses. Now, Oren goes over everything much better than I can. He's been in this company a whole lot more time than me. I suggest just watch that. If you would like something written, we can also have that organized for you. Will OpenLM control those types of licenses? So yes, OpenLM will indeed control those types of licenses. Not control, but monitor those types of licenses. And if it's, for example, Autodesk licenses, then you can also manage it, meaning save and close the application as I've shown. Just as an example, let me try and get an AutoCAD license. Meanwhile, while I'm asking the questions. So Autodesk indeed will close unused licenses. It's not Autodesk, it's the OpenLM agent. Let me show you. So I have an Autodesk application which I pulled now. I'm basically not using it. I'm idling. It can be open, but I'm not touching it. I'm not making it grab CPU and memory from the system. It's not doing anything. It's idling. And I have this component, the OpenLM agent, on my workstation. This is a demo workstation I have here. Now, this workstation, having AutoCAD, is being monitored by OpenLM. Let me go to the interface. I'll need to log in. And I have it right here. That's basically me. We see my username, vendor, feature, what I'm using, which group I'm from. Currently, I'm not grouped. When I started, my IP, my session duration, and in about 1 to 2 minutes, we'll also start getting idle periods. Oh, there we go. We got it already. So I've been idle on that application for like 40 seconds. It's been on for like 1 minute and a half, and like 40 seconds out of that I've been doing nothing. So I can just click here and close the application, or I can have OpenLM do that automatically. I tell OpenLM if things are getting stressed, so if licenses are like 90% utilization, over 90% or over 99%, then start releasing licenses. Whose licenses? People who are idling for, let's say, more than 1 hour, more than 2 hours. You can start releasing those licenses automatically. So this way you get the same amount of licenses and you increase the availability of each license. Each license will be more available more of the time. So you don't have to get more licenses, you just use this and you get those idle licenses be actually used. So what you've seen here on the screen is my workstation AutoCAD, which was basically closed. It was saved, then closed. If I want to, I can just click here and it relaunches AutoCAD for me in the same project. I didn't have any project open here, but it opens it with the same project, of course, provided I have a license. This will work also with name licenses, right? Yes, it will also work with named licenses. The save and close will not. You will have a different option there. If we are talking about something which just does not use the license manager at all, let's take Notepad here because it doesn't have a license manager. So what you can do, you can run a procedure. A procedure can simply kill the process, suspend the process, or run a CMD script. Now the CMD script can be save and close. If it's an Autodesk application, for example, so the script can be save and close because we have that script. We know what to tell Autodesk to close itself. Autodesk meaning it works for AutoCAD, it works for Inventor, for Autodesk applications. So Autodesk told me that named licenses are fixed by user. So they are fixed by user. Sometimes they're fixed by a user and it's a named license. Sometimes they're fixed by the MAC address, by the workstation itself. So in Autodesk case, it's a named license. It's fixed by a username and a user login. Licenses that OpenLM agent can get back can be used by other user. Exactly. Oh, you mean if it's a named license? Then no. In this case, no. If it's a named license, then it's per name. If it's a floating license, then it's more effective. For named licenses, less. Um, this is a big disadvantage. Yes, this is indeed a disadvantage if you are moving to named licenses, because, well, named licenses have really bad utilization. Let's say you buy a license and someone, I don't know, uses it like once a day or for an hour, or just uses it, I don't know, 1 day a week because he's not using this application so often. So why should he have a license? Why should he have a license all for his own? Well, it's basically Autodesk changing their model. They're always changing their models. I guess that next month we'll hear of something else. I wouldn't suggest it based on what our CEO showed me. I wouldn't suggest to move to a subscription-based license. I would keep it as a perpetual floating license and really hope this blows over. For example, also ArcGIS, I know that moved ESRI, which manufacture ArcGIS. I know that recently they are also starting to move from floating and starting to push towards named licenses more and more. So we got a few vendors trying to do that. SolidWorks didn't hear of anything. It didn't hear of any change there. I know that they're keeping the floating license model and works for them, and that's it. But if they do, I guess we'll have a newsletter for it. Oh, no problem, Andrew. Happy to help. If you need anything else, let us know. Contact us. We'll be happy to. Okay, you also have the community. You can also drop us a line there if you like. By chat, feel free. Okay, guys. So have a great day. I hope that you all stay safe. I hope to see you on the next webinar. And that's it. Thank you very much. Bye. Oh, yes, I will share we will share the recording of this webinar, so you will have that. If you would like the slide itself, please send an email to support@openlm.com, and we can just send you the slide itself if you need it for a promotional material. Okay, thanks. Hey guys, I'm gonna close the session. It might kick you off. I'm sorry for that. Have a great day. Bye-bye.